Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel called zuzanareacts, where I learn all things para with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video, we're going to look into Nalanda University and why it was burned out. And I know we've talked about it a lot in the comments below. Never really went much into the university itself and perhaps the reason why it was burned. So I am going to look at this right now with you. But before we get into the video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, let's get this party started.
Was standing at the eastern gate of Nalanda Mahavihar. He was a Turk army commander who had made a name for himself for the plundering expeditions across Bihar and mass slaughter of Buddhists and Hindus during his raids. He had arrived with only 200 horsemen. The six-story Mahavihar looked like a huge fort without any beginning or end. He rushed inside the gates. The Mahavihar was full of monks in saffron robes and shaved heads and was busy with the normal routine of the university. Some were chanting prayers. At any given time, more than 1,500 Buddhist teachers and 10,000 students used to live in this university. They were caught completely unaware of the coming attack. Once he reached inside the premises of Mahavihar, Khilji inquired if the famed library of the university contained any copy of Quran. He was told that the library, which was having more than 9 million books, had not a single copy of Quran. The next several hours were some of the most shameful hours in the long history of India. Every single teacher and student was killed in one of the most horrible massacres that the country has ever seen. After the bloodshed of the unarmed and non-violent monks, he was standing in front of the great library of the university. It was the largest and greatest library of its time, anywhere in the world, containing books on Buddhism, astrology, mathematics, medicines, and more. Those were handwritten books collected over centuries and contained all the knowledge India had to offer to the world. The massacre was so complete that when he asked his soldiers to bring someone who could explain the content of the books, the soldiers could not find a single person alive. They discovered that the entire city and hundreds of buildings spread in several kilometers was not a fort, but a university which the locals called Bihar. He looted the Mahavihar and obtained a great quantity of plunder. Before leaving the monastery, Khilji ordered the library and university to be put on fire. And with that, all the knowledge that was stored in those books was burned to ashes along with the bodies of the dead monks. The library kept on burning for more than 3 months. All of this is recorded in Tabaqat-e-Nasrit, written by an Islamic historian, Minhaj-e-Siraz. This was an eyewitness account. But why did Khilji kill thousands of monks, and why did he put the entire university on fire? Was this result of some misunderstanding or some accident? Another account of a Tibetan monk, an eyewitness to the Turk invasions, proves that it was not a one-off event. Rather, it was part of the larger and systematic destruction of Buddhist monasteries and monuments, including the holiest of the Buddhist site, Bodh Gaya. After burning Nalanda Mahavihar, Khilji attacked the Udantapuri Mahavihar, which was hardly 6 kilometers away from Nalanda, repeating the same story of mass slaughter and plunder. Most of the monks of the monastery were either beheaded or burnt alive. Next was the turn of the famed Vikramshila University, Bodh Gaya Temple, and several other large and small monasteries dotted across the region. Udantapur University was converted into the headquarters of the Turk army, from where they organized raids across eastern India. The persecution of Buddhist monks continued even after this infamous attack of Khilji. There were repeated attacks by small bands of Turkish soldiers for the next several decades, forcing the monks and students to simply desert the region forever. At the root of these repeated raids were the efforts by Buddhist monks and laity to revive the destroyed universities. Even after the burning and destruction of Nalanda University, it was not immediately deserted. Some daredevil monks tried to revive the university, though they knew that they will be eventually killed by the Islamic soldiers for their efforts. Monks from adjoining areas tried at least for 4 decades to revive the university. A Tibetan monk, Dharmaswamin, has given an eyewitness account of one of such attacks at Nalanda Mahavihar by the Turk soldiers. He visited Nalanda in 1234 AD and also spent one rainy retreat in the premises of the destroyed and burnt Nalanda Mahavihar. He was a student of Rahul Sribhadra, who was a famous professor of Nalanda University and was now in his 90s. He was surviving on food provided by Jayadeva, a lay disciple from Udantapuri. Jayadeva was thrown into the prison of Udantapuri on treason charges, and while in prison, he somehow came to know about the planning of a fresh raid on the monks of Nalanda. He was able to get the message of the coming attack sent to the monks residing in the destroyed remains of Nalanda. Sribhadra felt that there was no meaning in his life as he was already very old. He asked his students and other monks to immediately vacate the Mahavihar. Everyone fled, except Dharmaswamin, who was not ready to leave without his teacher. Finally, Rahul Sri Bhadra agreed to leave the monastery. Dharmaswamin carried his teacher on his back and fled from the place with a small supply of rice, sugar, and a few books obtained from the nearby Gyannath temple. Both of them were hiding in a small hiding hole near the temple when they saw around 300 Turk horsemen going towards Nalanda, fully armed and ready for the assault. Dharmaswamin says that he could not bring any book to Tibet as the library has been destroyed and burnt long time ago by the Turks, and he could not get a single copy of any manuscript. But before understanding why Bakhtiyar Khilji burnt down the Nalanda Mahavihar, we should understand why these monasteries attracted this much attention from the invading Islamic armies. We will also examine what were the larger impacts of the destruction of Nalanda University on Buddhism and India as a whole. Nalanda Mahavihar was one of the oldest universities in the world, which housed more than 10,000 students and 1,500 teachers. It also acted as the center of coordination of all other universities in the region, like Odantapuri, Vikramshila, and others. It remained the most prestigious institution for higher studies and research in the world for more than 1,000 years before it was destroyed by the Turks. Nalanda University was destroyed 3 times by the invaders, but rebuilt only twice. The first destruction came from the Hun under Meherkul during the 5th century AD, but it was restored and enlarged. The second attack came in the early 7th century by the Gauls. This time King Harshvardhan rebuilt the university. The third destruction in the 12th century by Khilji proved fatal, and it was destroyed forever. At the time of Buddha, it was a small town in ancient Magad and was situated near its old capital of Rajgriha. The establishment of Nalanda Mahavihar was very much rooted in the development and spread of Buddhism in India. The first major structure which came up in Nalanda was the Sariputta Stupa, built by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. Sariputta was one of the prime disciples of Buddha, along with Moggallana and Ananda. He was born in Nalanda and he also died here. Ashoka built the stupa over his bodily relics. The Nalanda Mahavihar was established in the 5th century AD by the Gupta kings. During the initial days, the Mahavihar admitted only Buddhist monks who had renounced the world. But later, they opened the door for the laity students also, with the freedom to leave the university after the completion of their education. Soon the university rose to its fame, and students from all across Asia started arriving in Nalanda. It attracted students from countries like China, Tibet, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, and Central Asia. The admission to Nalanda University was not an easy task, and it involved an interview by the gatekeepers, who were experts in different subjects. Of every 100 students seeking admission to the university, hardly 20 were admitted. The students received advanced studies in subjects like mathematics, religion, medicine, logic, language, and many more. The university had more than 1,500 teachers and more than 10,000 students. Famous Chinese traveler and scholar Xuanzang also studied at Nalanda University for 2 years. Nalanda University was also famous for its teachers like Aryabhat, Nagarjun, Dharmpal, Dharmkirti, Chandrakirti, and many other most important scholars of the ancient world. One of the most striking features of this university was its large library, which was called Dharmganj. The library was comprised of 3 multi-storied buildings named Ratnasagar, Ratnodadhi, and Ratnaranjaka. Ratnasagar was a 9-storied building which specialized in the collection of its rare sacred books. The university functioned as a self-governed and self-sufficient educational institution. The funds came from the patron kings as well as from more than 100 villages that were donated to the university. The university had a free education system. It had a huge campus with more than 10,000 rooms for students and teachers and several lecture halls. It also housed a brick temple more than 300 feet high, according to Xuanzang. It contributed a lot to the development of Buddhist philosophy and in the spread of Buddhism across Asia. Coming back to Bakhtiyar Khilji, he was a Turk who was born in Afghanistan. He wanted to join the army of Qutbuddin Aibak, but was refused entry into his army. He joined the forces of a local commander of the Awadh region. Turks wanted to invade Bengal, and initially, Khilji focused his attacks on Magad, as Magad was the door to Bengal. When he first encountered the large and fortified multi-storied Mahavihars, he mistook them as some sort of fort. Those large monasteries were centrally located near urban centers and were directly in the path of advance of Turks. They were easy targets, and the Turks destroyed them completely. Khilji concentrated on the monasteries that lay on their direct line of advance and were fortified like huge forts. Khilji also attacked these monasteries, most likely for obtaining plunder and treasures. The enormous wealth accumulated at these monasteries for centuries was a big attraction for raids. Mahavihar like Udantapuri were located strategically, and as a result, it was converted into the headquarters of Khilji's army. Some evidences show that these Central Asian tribesmen did not know much about universities and large libraries. When Khilji burned the large library, he must not have understood what he had destroyed. He was an illiterate invader who had no appreciation of the treasure contained in those books in the library halls. After the attack on Nalanda Mahavihar, the surviving monks from the region fled to more hospitable countries like China, Tibet, Nepal, Korea, and Southeast Asia. The Buddhist community life suffered a lot because of the collapse of the monasteries and the mass slaughter of monks. Khilji had struck the very root of the Buddhist social structure. The sword of Islam had fallen heavily on the priest class of Buddhism, and there was hardly any monastery or monk left to keep the flame of Buddhism burning in India. Slowly and bit by bit, the flame of Buddhism was extinguished in India. The destroyed remains of Nalanda were deserted after a few decades because of the continuous raids of Turks in the region. With time, it got covered with forest and was erased from the memory of people. Even the name Nalanda was forgotten, and instead, a village named Bargaon came up over the remains. In 1820, a British geographer, Buchanan Hamilton, visited the site and reported about ancient Buddhist remains scattered all around the mound. Based on his findings, Sir Cunningham excavated the site in 1861 and found the remains of Nalanda Mahavihar, as mentioned by the great Chinese traveler Xuanzang. The remains of Nalanda were declared a World Heritage Site in 2016 by UNESCO, and today it is again frequented by people from all over the world, not as students, but as tourists.
Wow. I am shocked. I actually had no idea that it was connected with Buddhism. And then, during the video, I was wondering, like, were they doing it because of the knowledge they knew? Because clearly Nalanda was a place where people flocked to, like, from all over Asia. It was massive. It just makes me feel so sad how much knowledge has been lost for the entire world. And I thought, like, maybe they knew something, and this is the reason why they were destroying it. But based on the video, that's actually not the case. But then I'm curious to know, like, how the people knew all these facts about Nalanda when it was just, like, then was forgotten. Like, what were their sources? Maybe this Chinese person name that I can't pronounce, but it is definitely very sad and very fascinating. And during the video, I was thinking to myself, now I think why they really don't like a certain, like, they don't like Christians and they don't like Islamic people because of the harm inflicted upon their country. So I appreciate very much where you're coming from, and clearly, it was such an evolved place. And they even mentioned Gupta Empire. We've done the video on this. I will try to link it up here for the ones if you're interested. And I did not realize that Nalanda was connected with Buddhism. That's very, very interesting. And I'm curious, like, did you guys know all of this about the Nalanda University? Like, was there anything that was like a new fact to you, or is there anything else that you maybe want to share with me about the university and what was found? Please let me know in the comments below. And I think with that being said, I believe this is it for today's video. If you did like it, please give thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, please do take care. Sending so much love. Bye-bye.